Okay, so this section will be a discussion, a bit of back and forth between our two speakers. I will be moderating to try and keep things on topic. So forgive me for any mistakes I make. Hopefully I don't make any. This is a 15-minute section. Reminder that after the closing remarks, after this, there will be Q&A. So please do send your Q&A questions to that Slido. So without further ado, whichever one of you wants to,
So, hello, John.
Yes, hello.
Hi there. I think before we start this discussion session, it's very important to determine something. Do you believe your opinions matter or don't they matter?
They matter to me.
Okay, so
but they don't matter to the universe.
No, because if you don't believe your own opinions matter, then I'm not going to take them seriously. There's no point. This discussion becomes absurd from that perspective, then, right? So if you believe your opinions matter, then obviously they'll matter to us as well. So because we're having trying to have a discussion today regarding a very important topic. So you do acknowledge your opinions matter, right?
Well, in the confines of this room, certainly, yes.
So if we had this discussion outside this room, would your opinions matter or not? I mean, it's a very simple question. I mean, you wouldn't be here today expressing your views if you didn't believe your opinions mattered.
Well, I was going to save my response to your challenge that why do I do this? Why am I here debating for my closing remarks? But okay, I can take your question now. I do it because I want a secular world.
You want a secular world?
I want a world in which religious opinions do not control political or educational matters.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So look, you just said you want a secular world where religious opinions do not have
influence.
Exactly. Yes. So, but to do that, wouldn't you say if we were going to do this in a academic way at least, wouldn't you say you would have to first understand and study all religions or look into them at least, which you obviously haven't done when it comes to Islam today, right? So why have the outlook already that that's what you want when you don't even know what Islam has to say regarding life, regarding man life in the universe, regarding other fundamental things that are relevant to us as human beings?
Well, that's a good question. It's because without evidence for a God, it doesn't really matter what any of the scriptures of any religion do say.
So
you might as well say that my Loch Ness monster is pink and likes Nutella.
Okay, so let's try to unravel this a bit. So now, and I think it's important to highlight this, John. You seem to have an underlying premise, which is evidence is what comes from observation.
Yes.
And something that you can observe and study that way, right?
Yes.
So in other words, I wasn't calling you someone who ascribed to scientism. If you, and I'm sure everyone will acknowledge this, I asked you, do you ascribe to something similar to scientism? I don't want to label you, that's what I said, right? It's just to correct you on that.
Right.
But the point being, do you acknowledge, or is your view, or your outlook, that science is the only way to truth?
Yes.
Okay, good. So do you not see the issues with that outlook, or the problems with that outlook?
Well, you can try explaining it to me.
So let me give you an example. Have you been to India? Have you been to India?
No, I haven't.
You haven't been to India?
I'd love to.
Okay, do you believe India exists?
Yes.
Okay, so you haven't been there, you haven't observed it, yet you believe it exists.
The evidence is fairly convincing.
Okay, so what do you mean by the evidence is fairly convincing?
I've seen photographs taken from space.
Brilliant, okay. What else?
Do we need more?
Okay, fine, fair enough. I was just giving you the benefit of the doubt that you can give us a bit more so I can work.
I know of people who have come from India, who have visited India.
Okay,
a friend of mine is there now.
Okay.
And I'm on Messenger and Facebook with him. He's currently, where is he currently? Is it Calcutta? I can't remember.
So look, here's the problem, John. You haven't observed India yourself. Yet you believe it exists based on photographs and people that have been there. Now, how do you know those photographs are actually of India? And that you're not just being told they're of India?
Well, I think that you'd have to, I mean, you're on a loser there because you're having to try to rubbish all of the photographs taken from space by all of the spacecraft, all of them orbiting satellites, and all of the spacemen that have been in the
Have you
IS.
seen? Okay, have you seen yourself satellites that are up there right now?
Yes, you can observe satellites.
But have you observed them yourself through a telescope?
I have, yes.
You have? Okay. So here's the thing. What I'm saying regarding India is you haven't observed it yourself. So what I'm saying essentially is your belief India exists is based on something called testimony, right? In philosophy, this is known as authentic and valid testimony, right? Which is, by the way, John, an integral part of the scientific method, right?
Well, yes.
Something you deny in your book itself.
But the testament can itself be tested. I mean, with the right equipment, I can go and investigate India for myself.
That's a potential, John. But right now you haven't done that, yet you believe India exists, right? So your belief is not based upon what you can do as far as observing it. It's based on something else. So what I'm trying to highlight to you, John, is that are you willing to acknowledge that there are other routes to knowledge other than just science, which you're demonstrating right now? By highlighting that you believe India exists, although you haven't observed it yourself. Pictures are testimonials. Someone is telling you those pictures are of India. You're going by the testimony of people. Let me give you another example which may be closer to home, which may help you a bit better, if you don't mind. Right? Do you believe evolution, the Darwinian mechanism, is true?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't listen. As an ex-science teacher, I don't use terms like "I believe." I use terms like "the evidence shows." The evidence
Shows that
evolution is a fact.
So you believe the Darwinian mechanism in particular?
Well, now, are you going to pin me down to a man who died 150 years ago, or are you going to allow me to update evolution with what we've discovered since?
Give us your definition then. What do you want to call it? Evolution? Just evolution in general?
Well, at its basic level, all evolution means is change. And we can observe change happening today, and we can see evidence of a progression of things that happened in the past, in the fossil record and so on. And so the best explanation is that change happened in the past too.
Okay, good. So look, that's good you're saying that. So what I'm asking you specifically is, do you believe the theory of evolution is true?
Yes.
Okay, so in you saying yes, have you done all of the observations which led to that conclusion of that particular theory?
This is the "were you there" argument.
Well, that's coming from your own perspective, because you said evidence is something which is observable, it's something that's repeatable and something that's shareable.
Yes.
Anything, and you've said also in your book and your videos that anything that comes from the human mind can't be trusted because it's tainted.
Yes.
Your words.
Yes, that's right.
So the theory that you believe in is coming from the mind of a scientist.
No. The theory that I subscribe to is that change can be observed, and potentially I can go and observe change. I can go. Have you seen the big Petri dish experiment?
No, I haven't.
A fantastic experiment. They made a Petri. You know what a Petri dish is? Yeah. It's a culture container which you put a nutrient jelly in, and then you can grow bacteria. Okay? They made a great big one. It's a meter long, and they've put 2 different bacteria. No, they've put a bacterium, same culture of bacteria in each end, and in between them they've put increasing strengths of antibiotic. Okay, 10%, 20%, 100%, and initially the bacteria spread in the area where there's no antibiotic. There's a video of this because it's speeded up. We use organisms that have a short lifetime because we can't observe massive changes. We don't live long enough. Okay, so bacteria are perfect. They reproduce every 20 minutes. Okay, so initially they stay confined in the area where there's no antibiotic, but a few of them mutate and they can break out and pass into the area where the antibiotic is 10%. Okay, more time goes by, and an even smaller number mutate, and they pass into the 20%, so on and so forth. You get the picture. Eventually, they can colonize the 100% strength.
Sure, that's an observation.
Change being observed repeatedly and shareably.
Yes,
you can watch it.
Fair enough. I agree.
Today.
So let's make a distinction here. There is a difference between observations of science and theories of science, right?
Yes.
So what I'm trying to highlight to you is that there are other routes to knowledge which are involved even within the scientific method itself, which you have to rely upon for you to believe the conclusions of science.
Well,
which you reject, by the way. So I want to know, which way is it? Do you acknowledge that there are other routes to knowledge, such as testimonial knowledge, or do you hold firm to that science is the only way to truth?
Where you are trying to put words into my mouth here.
I'm asking you the question.
Okay. Is trying to make me... You see, the trouble is that the word belief has two meanings. It can mean merely accepting something which we know to be true. Like, you know, if I jump off a roof, I'll very probably fall. Nobody would contest that. So, to all intents and purposes, it does not need actively believing. We can observe believing now in what do they call them? Give me a word to the
I'm lost. I'm really lost, right?
Big machine, you put a person in and you watch his brain. And you give him radioactive material. Thank you? Yeah?
MRI.
Yeah, medicals, come on, tell me the name. That's it, thank you, MRI. I've been in one, MRI scanner. And the functional MRI scanner is the one where you can put in a decaying substance into the radioactively decaying, harmless, into the bloodstream, and watch where it congregates. So if you give somebody in an MRI scanner pictures of things that need believing and pictures of things which are known, you can see how actively thinking he is. And things that need believing attract a lot of this activity. Things like, my horse will win the race. You need to actively believe that. But things like, yesterday this horse won the race, that's a foregone conclusion. We know that is now a fact. You don't need to believe that.
Yeah, but John,
So-
I'm sure
so
everyone's
I'm
really,
trying to explain-
everyone's really interested in the science lessons. I'm sure we've got a lot to learn from you, being an
I'm trying to
ex-physics
explain,
teacher.
because you asked me about where I need to use belief in science.
No, I'm asking you a very simple question. Do you acknowledge that there are other routes to knowledge which are integral to the scientific method itself, such as testimony? Or don't you acknowledge that? Are you just saying, just purely, because according to your book, and you may want to change your opinion, that observations, repeatable, and that are shareable, full stop. According to that type of definition, you're pigeonholing yourself in many ways. Because you, in a way, you're denying the scientific enterprise. You're denying science in itself.
No.
Right?
Because...
So just tell me this, John. John, do you believe in the theories of science?
The theories of science do not need believing.
I'm not saying the absolute. I'm just asking. So do you ascribe...
No, I wouldn't claim they were absolute. I claim that they are the best explanation currently.
And do you acknowledge that they are also what's incorporated in the process of getting to the theory? There are other elements to it, such as testimony, reasoning, argumentation.
Can we let John make his point?
Yes.
Every theory makes predictions,
Yeah.
and at that stage you can believe the prediction or not. We would call it a hypothesis. And there will be rival hypotheses, just like there are rival runners in a horse race, and you can choose your favorite. Okay? And that is where belief is applied in science.
So you'd acknowledge that?
At the frontiers where we don't know.
Okay, so let me ask you in a simple way. We've got 1 minute about 2 minutes left. Do you acknowledge testimony as a valid route to knowledge? It's a simple question.
I acknowledge testimony which can be tested. I acknowledge, if you were to tell me that I can see a particular satellite going past at this moment, then I know that if I get the right equipment, I can check out your testimony.
Sure, but that's a potential, John.
Yes, I can check out your testimony. Otherwise, your testimony is very suspect.
Yeah, but I don't think you're understanding my point right now.
Because I could testify to you that I have fairies at the bottom of my garden. And unless you go there and check for yourself, you should doubt me.
Sure, but I'm not. Look, we're getting into the epistemology of things. I'm asking you a very simple question. Do you consider testimony as a fundamental route to knowledge, something that science is also dependent upon?
Only if it can be checked.
But that doesn't look, testimony. You don't take testimony as a route to knowledge based on the fact that it could be tested. That's
Yes,
just
yes.
So because
the whole point of science is to challenge claims.
Yeah. So,
Testimony is a claim.
Okay.
So it must be challengeable
Okay, so
in order to be scientific.
okay. So let me ask you this way: do you acknowledge that in science? Let me keep making this as simple as possible. When you're engaged in science, a scientist is doing the science. They take observations. Bertrand Russell, for example, highlighted that you, as a scientist, you take observations and you reason upon the observations.
That is time. I'm afraid.
We need more time, man.